Happy December 1st. Now that it's December 1st, we get to start Advent of Code 2021. Been released. New day. Let's start. Question 1. You're minding your own business. Get interrupted. You're in a submarine. Gotta find some stars, 50 stars. This is the background story. Let's get into the puzzle for today. As the submarine drops below the surface, it automatically performs a sonar sweep of the nearby seafloor. Each line is a measurement of the seafloor at a depth as the sweep looks farther and farther away. Okay. So you get those are the depths. First order of business is to figure out how quickly the depth increases. So how that number increases. Number of times the depth measurement increases from the previous measurement. So we don't look at this one, right? So let's look at these numbers. All right, so it increases, decreases, increases. All right, and we'll note that this is a decrease from this, but it's still an increase, so it's only the previous number, not like the newest, deepest part, right? So let's see. Okay, well, let's pull it over here. Let's pull up our VS Code. I've already made a 2021 folder in my repo. Let's make this, oops, that's not what I want. Rename this to 01 for day 1. Let's get started. Again, for all of you who are new to my stream, I'll be doing this as test-driven development, which means I write the tests first. That'll become more clear in a second. So the first thing I'm going to do is take these test numbers and add them to input test. Oops. Close that out. And let me grab my puzzle input. It's pretty big. Copy that and put it in input test. Ooh, 2,000 rows of it. All right, close that out. And let's look at, so one thing that I learned from doing the, practicing on the 2015 event was that there's, basically 2 ways to load my input. Oh, what's going on here? I must not have saved something. Anyways, the first is if there's one long string. The second is if there are, like this, a number of different lines. Let me actually... let me pull that up and see where I went wrong. Huh. Maybe I just changed it in the 2019 or 15 template. Okay. So I'm going to copy all of this right here. And I'm going to paste it in both the. Where did I copy that from? I'll just start from the check function. I'm going to post it in the 2021. So there's two load inputs. And then just because what I would have done is that just do this copy anyways, I'm going to post that there too. All right. So let's save these. Let's close out of these and get back to our. Okay. So now we're back in day one. We've reset those things. So this is the one for one line. This is the one for multiple lines. So I'll just delete the one line and look at. Okay, now I'm going to go looking at my tests. So the first thing is that I'm going to test the load that I'm inputting. So the function that I'll be using is load input, and I'm passing in the file name, right? Which is a string, which is .text. And what I want to get out should be an array containing strings. And just to make it easier for myself, I'm going to dump these in here. Now, in reality, these are all going to be returning as like the way that I have it now. Actually, let me run this test and let it fail first. Okay. Were they mad about? Oh, because I want an int. All right, so let me run this. All right, so the problem here, right, is that my current function is set up to return strings, right? Which I knew. But what we're gonna do now, because we want them to come back as numbers, they're always gonna be numbers. You know, we can just set it as a number the first time and an integer the first time and be done with it. So let's go to our function here, where it's multiple lines. And first of all, we want to change this to a slice of ints, right? And then the problem here is that input int, I'm going to change that. And let me collapse these so that we don't have to be distracted by them. So block is the scanner, and this, okay. So what we need to do is we need to turn this block, which is currently these number in string form, into a string. So what I'm going to do is, because this is test driven development, I'm going to make a test real quick that called make int. Where we're going to pass in a number, example 1, 2, 3 here, and we're going to return that integer. All right. So let's test it. Actually, let's put this above so that we can test them in order. All right. These errors. Oh, it's getting mad at me about this. Let's for now just keep these as string. We're not quite ready for that yet. So I'll fail the test, but I won't, prevent me from compiling. Okay, make int doesn't exist. So let's make the make int function. So what is that? What we're going to pass in is a string. And what we want to return is an int. How are we going to do that? We're going to return. Well, first we have to do it. I know from the documentation, from practicing, there is a string conversion package here. So what I need to do, the problem is it also returns an error, right? So we'll say int val, and then the error equals string conversion a to I, and then it receives that string, right? That's the C there. Let's import that. All right, string conversion is imported. Now I got to do stuff with it. The first thing I'm going to do is I made a function up here to just handle errors. So what I'm going to do is check error. If there's no error, then it doesn't do anything, right? And then I will return int val. All right. So now that I've made this, it should take that string. It should return either the integer value or in an error, which hopefully is nil, right? And then it won't do anything if that error is nil. Right, so let's test that again. And when we test it, now we're back to failing the test load input, which means that we are passing the make test int. All right, so now what we're going to do is get back into here, change this to int, change this to int, and and change this block to make int passing in that string. All right, so now that should turn that string into an int, right? So let's go ahead and run our test now. Let's see. 51. Okay, I'm just going to comment this stuff out down here. Not ready for it yet. So we're going to test those, and our test pass, right? So now we are able to successfully turn strings into integers and then take our input and create a slice of all those numbers that we can now iterate through. All right, so let's make one more test real quick. This is a pretty simple problem that we have here on this first day so far, at least this first part before they throw a wrench into what we're doing. Remember that we have to assess whether a number is greater or less than the previous number. So we're going to have to make some sort of comparison function. So let me I'm going to make a, I mean, do I need an is greater than? Yeah, I mean, yeah, let's just do it, right? This is something that we could just do in line, right? In line. It would probably be easier, but this is simple and we want to make some tests. Let's go for it, right? So my idea of this is greater function is going to be passing in two variables, right? Like number one, like, so let's look at these first two, right? 199, 199 and 200, right? 200. And we want that to return true, right? Because it is true that it is greater. And then let's look at our other example, 210 and 207. And this should return false. All right, let's go ahead and test it. It fails because we don't have this is greater function. So let's make it. And it will take, we'll call it val1, which is going to be an int, val2, which is also an int, and it's going to return a Boolean. All right, so again, this is really simple. We're just going to return val1 is less than val2, right? So it will, can I do that? Oh no, I spelled that wrong. I don't think I need these commas or these parentheses. All right, so it will assess whether val1 is less than val2, which is, what we want. I mean, I guess we could reverse this, right? Put 2 in the front, right? But essentially it's returning whether this statement is true or false, right? So let's go ahead and test it. And our tests are all passing. All right, so now I think we're ready to make sort of the integration test here for part 1. So let's make an input value. Well, let's just put this as part 1. What do we call this? Load input. Okay. And then this will be part 1. And what we want is it to just receive this input, right? So this is just like sort of like the data that's coming in. And we want it to return, okay, let's see what they said. So this was our test case, right? And there are 7 measurements that are larger than the previous measurement. So we are going to want this to return 7. Okay. Save that, and let's actually look at part 1. We're actually passing in an int, right? A list of ints, and we're going to return an int. This is going to fail, obviously, because I'm returning 99. All right. So what do we need to do, right? So we're passing in the data, and we're going to have to make some sort of a counter, right? So let's and we'll initialize it at 0. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be so we need to keep track of the indexes, right? So we'll do a for I, right, the index, and well, we want to skip over the first one, right? So we're gonna do a for I equals 1, because we're gonna start at the first index, not index 0. So we're starting at the second value. And we're gonna do this while I is less than the length of data. That's what we're passing in as the like the data that we're coming in, right? And then we will increase that by 1 every time. All right. So we got our for loop here, and now we're gonna have to do where we assess that, right? So if, and then remember we have that is greater, and then we need to put in our 2 values, right? So data I minus 1 is going to be the first number, right? Because we're starting at index 1 here, right? But we want to compare index 1 to the little one to the first one to the next one, right? And data I. Okay. So if it's greater, then what we're going to be doing is counter plus plus, or what is it? Plus equals 1. I could probably do plus plus too. No, let's try that. I think I can do that. And then what we're going to return at the very end of this is counter. Because that will tell us how many. All right, so let's go ahead and test, see if we get a 7, and we've passed that test. So we are able to do the full thing with the input and the output becoming 7. All right, so now it's time to do the real deal. Let's uncomment out this part 1 stuff. Doesn't look like there's any problems. We're doing our data the same way. We're gonna output it. All right, so let's do it. Go main.go, and we return in a quarter of a millisecond that there are that many increases. So let's enter it in 1292 and get ourselves our first gold star. All right. So now let's look at part 2. This is where they trick us. Considering every single measurement isn't as useful as you expected, there's just too much noise in the data. Consider sums of a 3 measurement sliding window. Again, considering the above example. Start by comparing the first and second 3 measurement windows. All right, so let's see. What? Oh, I see. Okay, so we're gonna like sort of do a sort of a rolling average, I think. First and second 3, their measurements. The first window marked as A, their sum is, right? The second window, its sum is this. The sum of these measurements in the second window is larger than the sum of the worst, therefore it's increased, right? Okay. So let's think about this. So what we're going to have to do is create these different sets. Trying to think about how to do this to reuse what I currently have, right? Obviously we can do this, reuse this is greater one, right? Just by passing in the sum of the three, right? Versus the other values. I think that what we can do is, I don't even want to create a new function here. Let's do part 2. And our answer should be 5 now for this. All right, so we're going to be doing a lot of this same stuff, right? But instead of let me comment this out. I don't want to do this. What I'm going to do is make like a second array that I pass into it, right? So what I want to do is I need to make a test for sort of adding those numbers together. So let's copy that. It's not a great name, but I'm going to go with it. What's our input? Our input is... Our input's going to be this. So let's... Input equals... All right, so our input equals this. Right, so that's what we're going to create, right? And then what we want to do is have an output. And it's going to be, I wish I could just copy all those. I wonder what this is going to look like. Let's tap these over first. All right, so output we want oops, go test, fail, we don't have combine 3. Let's make combine 3. And what we're going to have as our input, right, is we'll still call it data because that's really what it is. That's the list of int. I mean, that's how we referenced it in the previous problem. And we want our output also to be what should we call this? 3 measurement window equals empty set there. And then what we're going to do is a loop here on data for I equals 0. So we're going to just start with 0 this time. While I is less than length of data. So that would bring us to right at the end, but we want to stop at like, 2 before the end. So we're going to do this minus 2 more, right? Because we don't want to sort of overflow. Our list here is going to be shorter than the original 1 by 2. And again, it'll be I plus plus for our incrementer. All right. So now what we need to do is some addition, right? So it's going to be 3 MW, append 3 MW, which starts at 0, and we're going to append onto this data. Let's just make this first. Data I plus okay, and we're going to be appending that 3 onto it. All right, so this should be taking this data set, right? And it should be iterating through it, and it should be adding the first 3 and then these 3 and then these 3 and so until it gets to this one right here, right? 2 before the end, where it's going to stop, right? And we're going to return 3MW. Okay. So let's see if that combined 3 passes. It does pass, right? Because this this test that we're failing is actually this part 2 one. Let me comment it out so that we can have a nice clean pass. All right, so that's passing. All right, so now what we need to do is, it's essentially going to be the same as part 1, and we could even still do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to not have a counter, but we're going to say new data equals combine 3 data, right? So that's taking the data that's input, right? This set, for example, and turning it into this new set, right? And then what we'll do is return part 1 with the new data, right? We'll see if that works. First we'll we did that already. All right, so let's test it. Passes, excellent. Now let's run it for real. It's almost the same number. Well, we'll see if this is right. It should be. 1262, submit, and we got it. We got our gold star. All right. completed day one. Good for us. Eh. Well, I'll do this later. I'll be pushing that out to GitHub for other people to mock it. If they so feel the need. So yeah, there it is. There's day one. Got ourselves our 2 stars. In at midnight, we'll see what the new thing is, and I'll run it tomorrow during lunch. In the meantime, see you tomorrow. Take care.